The Transfigured gem introduced this league, Ice Shot of Penetration. When combined with Fury Valve, I believe is the best new clearing skill in the entire game. The skill also has the ability to shotgun bosses in a way that we usually see from something like Tornado Shot, where each additional projectile adds another instance of damage. Its mechanics are fairly complex, and we're going to go through them today, but the playstyle is actually incredibly simple. The only thing that matters is a little bit of positioning and a tiny bit of aiming. So let's talk about the first two most important things. What is Ice Shot of Penetration? Ice Shot of Penetration says, fires a piercing arrow that converts some physical to cold on its target and converts all physical to cold in 2 cones perpendicular to the target. So let's jump in and see what that means. So when you fire a projectile from you to an enemy, it will fire, it will strike the enemy, and then it will create a cone in either direction perpendicular to where you are standing and deal cone damage in that direction. These cones have a massive radius at base of 3.1, which is similar to things like Ice Nova. They scale with area of effect, but also with angle. To jump back to the wiki for a second, we can take a look at this. Additional effects from 1 to 20% quality. You can get up to 80% increased area of effect angle. Thanks to our good friend ifnjeff, who did some extensive testing on this skill. After we realized the skill was definitely shotgunning in maps, and we needed to learn more about how it was happening. I'll let Jeff explain this part to you. All right, here we are with our good buddy ifnjeff. We're going to talk about Ice Shot mechanics and potentially other mechanics that go along with Fury Valve.
What I have discovered is that, say you have an enemy like this. When you shoot them, it produces a cone. It's a circular cone, which has a base angle of around 75 degrees. When you get quality on Ice Shot, it increases the cone angle by a significant amount. The base quality is like 80%. And so if you went all out with Ashes and Enhance, you can get like 4 times the angle, basically. What I discovered in-game is that this will increase all the way out to 180 degrees with moderate investment. I think you need like 35% quality to get to 180. The visual in-game will not wrap past 180 degrees, but the hitbox of the cone will wrap past 180. We're talking about Ice Shot of Penetration, which, like we said, has 2 cones, 1 on either side. So this is what like 30-ish quality would look like, where you almost close the circle fully. If you were to go beyond 35% quality, each of them would wrap to the other side. And this is where we can talk about the shotgunning behavior. So for each simultaneous set of projectiles that you fire with an attack, 1 projectile can hit each enemy, and every single cone can hit them. That includes both cones from a given hit against someone, and the cones from hitting anyone else. So it shotguns as much as you would desire.
So how does this work alongside of Fury Valve? Well, Ice Shot of Penetration says, modifiers to number of projectiles do not apply to this skill. That led a lot of people to believe that this would not function with the Fury Valve because of its wording, but it does in fact work. So normally Ice Shot of Penetration would pierce the first target that it hit, but instead, with the Fury Valve, it hits the original target and splits. The language on Fury Valve is modifiers to number of projectiles instead apply to the number of targets that projectiles split towards. So if you have 6 additional projectiles, say 2 from the amulet, 2 from Deadeye, and 2 from the tree, it will then split that first arrow into 6 additional arrows targeting nearby enemies. All of these enemies can be hit by the cones of the enemies around them. If you scale enough cone angle, you will be effectively getting full coverage on a pack. Let's jump into paint again and talk about how that is going to look. So let's say we have a pack that looks something like this. You fire in and there's, this many enemies. Let's say you also have this many projectiles. So you're going to fire an arrow and it's going to hit this enemy. Normally Ice Shot would pierce, but because we have the Fury Valve, we are not going to be piercing. It's going to be splitting towards the number of enemies nearby. So all of these enemies, if we have this many arrows, let's say 1, 2, 3, 6, let's say we have 6 splits. all of these enemies are going to get an arrow sent to them. Afterwards, each enemy is going to do its cone. Now let's say we get 35 quality-ish and we have a full cone. That's not really necessary, and I'll explain why in a second. All right, guys, arrow from the future here. In editing, I realized I did not come back in a second and explain why this was the case. So the reason that we don't need full circular coverage to get really good clear with our cones is this. So you fire a projectile, it hits an enemy, and it creates a cone. Okay, this cone gets scaled with quality and with sufficient angle. Let's say that you have like 23 quality, which ends up looking something like this. This is inexact, but let's say 23 quality. I think it's like 135 degrees. It's going to look something like this. So if you have other monsters nearby, they don't need to be firmly in the cone. As long as they're overlapping with one of the cone hits, they're going to get hit by that cone. And if they're close enough, they actually can get hit by both cones. So the only monster that's not going to get hit is one that is perfectly placed in front of or behind. Well, I guess not in front of, it would have been hit by the original projectile, but behind the monster that you're firing at. This one would not get hit, but anything else in this massive radius of almost 360 degrees is going to get hit. So I don't know that it's worth it scaling quality too far, unless you plan on scaling the quality so far that these overlaps are going to cross each other. And you now are going to have two cones that are firing like 270 degrees, getting 2 hits on every single monster. That may be worth it. All right, back to the video. But we're just going to use full circles to show the ice shot AoE. We're going to have an AoE around every single enemy that is struck. And what that means is all of these enemies that have these AoEs go off around them are going to potentially overlap with other enemies in the area. This middle target here is getting hit by every single one of these cones in a way that Tornado Shot would also shotgun on a boss. For map clear, this is absolutely insane. With very little investment, you can get incredibly good clear from throwing one mine at a time. But on single target, it's not quite that easy. We need to use things like Tornado and returning projectiles to get a massive number of overlaps. And I'm gonna let Jeff take it away again to explain how this works.
Last time we were talking about the walls. We talked about using the wall to catch all of the projectiles essentially as they returned. I did a little bit of positioning testing, and we can get almost the same number of overlaps in the open with no nearby walls because of Tornado. Each time you cast it, it can catch up to 20 projectiles. The way that Tornado works, if you're standing far away from the boss like this, say blue is you, red is the boss, and you use an ability that causes your Mana Forged arrow to trigger, the Mana Forged arrow shoots your ensnaring arrow towards the boss and it crits, and that causes you to trigger Tornado. It will cast Tornado towards the enemy that you crit, but it'll start just a little bit in front of you. Like it initially spawns the Tornado a short distance in front of you, and it'll gradually move towards the boss during that initial phase. If you position yourself such that the enemy is that initial distance away, the Tornado will spawn directly on the boss, or at least near it. It doesn't even have to be directly on the boss. We could have it even here would be fine. The bigger your cones are, yeah, the further away you can be and still have this work. The trick here is, because you are using mines, the projectiles will return to the mine location, not to you, right? And so if you throw your mines where the Tornado is going to spawn, you throw them right under the Tornado, it will just hit the Tornado because it's inside it essentially, and it'll split. It'll fire off a whole bunch of these projectiles, which will then return to the mine location, which is right where the Tornado is. All of these projectiles that return will hit the Tornado again because it can be hit 20 times.
So it can get shotgun itself by this skill. The projectiles themselves will hit the Tornado again. No matter how many return projectiles are fired from a single shot, they all can shotgun a Tornado?
I don't know that they all can. It may only be one of them that can hit it, but one can hit it, one can hit the boss, one can hit the Hydrosphere. I found that standing out in the open, I was getting on the order of like 8 hits.
With how many projectiles?
Against a single target. That was with +6. Yes.
Okay.
Something I think I want to go away and verify is whether multiple of the returning projectiles can hit the tornado. Because for an enemy, that's not the case. Only one of them can.
Right.
But I need to somehow explain the fact that I was getting 8+ hits with this setup, with just an enemy and the tornado there.
I'm currently playing this as a Deadeye and stacking as many projectiles as I can in order to attempt to see how far I can push this projectile AoE overlap stuff. I've already completed a tier 17 with definitely suboptimal gear, and I'm beginning to think that this is going to change the meta of how we play clear skills. I can see this working with Magic Find because of how few requirements this has, perhaps even being league startable. I'm very excited about the prospects of this skill, and I wanted to get this video out there because a lot of people are asking me how this functions, and there definitely will be build guides coming soon. I'm very likely going to play this in a couple of different ways, one with like a max all-out clear setup from Deadeye, and then maybe as another setup that has a little bit more tankiness to it. But either way, make sure you subscribe and come check out the Twitch, twitch.tv/AER0__. If you want to support me, you can come over there, drop that Twitch Prime, and like this video, comment down below, and make sure that you're subscribed here as well. I'm going to be going live right after this video. There's going to be lots of ice shot of penetration content. I'm very likely going to be league starting this next league if I can figure it out, so I'm super hyped, so come check us out. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you all for watching, and as always, take care.